folks, and welcome to our channel. It's time to talk about what we read in February 2025. And I feel as though I've had a slow month reading because I had a week off, but it turned into a building week and I didn't get much reading done. So I planned to do this video talking about a lot more books than I've got here. I've got 4 books, which, to be quite honest, is it's a fair amount to read. And a couple are quite thick. So anyway, let's get to it. The first book that I completed in February 2025 was this one. And it's The Six Tudor Queens, the Catherine of Aragon, the true Queen one, and it's by Alison Weir. So obviously it's the first in a new series that I'm reading. And I can honestly say I loved this. I have read a lot of Tudor books over my time, and I have always struggled to find a book where I bonded with this queen. She's always been portrayed as quite cold and aloof or boring, stoic, all of those energies and elements. But this book brings through that aspect of her character, but it also lets you see the other side of her character, the sexual part of her character, the vulnerable part of her character, the strong part of her character, all aspects of her. You know, when we start reading about the Tudor wives, it's always let's get to Anne, let's get to Anne. It has been for me, it is what it is. But I think this writer has done an amazing job with this book. For me, she introduced me to Catherine in a different light for the first time. It follows her from just before she meets, well, just before she comes over to marry Prince Arthur, that very short and unconsummated marriage, to being practically imprisoned. It was absolutely brutal what this queen went through. Being imprisoned for years, where you're not really imprisoned, but you're not fruit, you are fruit, you are fruit. You're not free, but you're at the mercy of the patriarchy. You're at the mercy of the hierarchy. You're at the mercy of the powers that were. And you're at the mercy of the system. And you'll marry who you're told to marry. And it's horrific. And then, obviously she marries Henry, Prince Henry, who becomes King Henry VIII. And they have quite a brilliant marriage in the start, allegedly, according to this book. But it soon goes downhill fast. And you get to see Henry's mental health as well. The fact that it was possibly very narcissistic. Um, and the toing and froing and the manipulation that he did and the different women and all of the thing with Anne Boleyn and all of that comes up, and then how she goes off and she's again practically imprisoned again until she dies. And it kind of leaves theories of how she actually could have died because there's rumours that have not really been discounted of a possible poisoning. Um, I loved this, and I'm so glad I read it because when I read The Heart and the Crown about Henry VIII, that was the second book in the Tudor Rose series or the York Rose series. I really hated that book. I felt that the author kind of hated it as well in some way because she really struggled I thought she struggled with Henry, and I wonder if it's because of all this that by the time she got to Henry, it was like, oh, what do you do with it? But then maybe I should actually read it again once I've read this, because maybe she was actually showing him in his true colours that, yeah, society and history chooses to see him as this big grand king, but he was actually quite a weak and feeble man. And he was quite, it was all, what is it? I don't know, something about no knickers. All fur coat and no knickers. I don't know, whatever. It possibly isn't that saying, but you know what I mean. Um, I loved it. And so far, the people that I've spoken to already online have loved this series. And I know it gets rave reviews. So at the time of filming, for where I am with this series, because I've read Anne's as well, I can recommend it at the time of filming. We then move on to something different, and it's called Anna O, and it is by Matthew Blake. Very different to that. Hardback, do you like it? This is meant to be like a collector's edition. I didn't know that when I bought it. It's been on my shelf a while, and it's one that I saw on BookTube that people were raving about. And we've had this conversation here as well about how BookTube books that have been raved about, not necessarily great books, but anyway, I enjoyed this. There were slumps in it. I will say there's a few slumps, but it's his first ever book. And basically, it's about a woman called Anna O that is asleep. There's been a murder committed in a log cabin in the woods on a family holiday. And she's found Anna O asleep. So there's a sleep disorder doctor in it, and they're looking into sleep disorders, um, sleepwalking disorders where somebody can commit a crime and do something crazy when they're sleepwalking and then actually not wake up from it. And but people can be asleep for years. And the powers that were in it, the political system in the United Kingdom, is wanting to reopen the case. Anna O's mom was, at the time of the killing, an MP, like up in Parliament. And the powers that be in the system want to open this case up because they think it's not enough that she's just asleep and that's it. And they want to wake her up to find out what's happened. So they take her to this sleep centre, and the sleep doctor that does this is all about stimulation. So he has her favourite songs played. He asks what were her favourite scents, what was her favourite clothes. So they rub the clothes on the skin, they play the music. What was her favourite football team? I think it's Arsenal in this one, and they play Arsenal in the background to start stimulating those senses. Anyway, the story goes from there. And do you know something? If you liked The Mother by T.M. Logan, you will love this, and vice versa. If you've already read this and you'd like to read something similar, The Mother by T.M. Logan is really good. I actually like books like this where it goes into the corruption within politics, within the system, the powers that were, the manipulation, the underbelly, and it all brings up and how it affects the family and people getting framed for things. I enjoyed it. There is a few slumps in this, but apart from that, yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. We then moved on to book two, and I like the fact that Alison Weir does this and numbers the books in a series. Why don't authors do that anyway? Six Tudor Queens, book two, and this is Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession by Alison Weir. And take a moment for these covers. Yeah. Okay, telling the story of Anne Boleyn. And I've read a lot of books on Anne Boleyn, and I've always liked the character, not the character, but the person Anne Boleyn. But I have never again seen her depicted like this. This writer has an amazing ability, especially with females, of showing the light and the dark. I mean, to where I am now with this series, she doesn't just put all the positives in, and she doesn't rip a new bum, okay? Bummo. Um, you see a side of Anne that I've not seen as well, the young side, the side before, again, father, systems, uncle, powers that were, took her and used her as a pawn in the royal courts. It goes through, very similar to Catherine's, it goes through the abuse, the rape within these royal courts that was rife, that, in some cases it wasn't even safe for a female to walk the corridors within these royal palaces. She talks about the King of France, I think is King Louis, I think, don't quote me on it, or King Francis. It's the one that was a chronic womanizer, and the fact that it's possible that, like they refer to Mary Boleyn as the Great Whore, charming, that actually she possibly was raped and possibly even raped by Henry VIII as well, allegedly, according to this book, and explores that it may not have been what we've been led to believe, that she was this big whore that, and how the women were just used and abused, and how the Royal Society around it and all of that closes its eyes to it, doesn't want to see it, doesn't want to acknowledge it. That and even like your own family turning on you. What I will say about this is when it gets to the bit about the divorce, Obviously, it shows you it from Anne's perspective, and Catherine's book shows it from Catherine's perspective. But it did get a little bit tedious because you've just read it. So bear that in mind, and bear it in mind also that you're reading it from a different perspective. The ending of this, and I don't think I'm giving any spoilers because we know how it ends, how she wrote the ending and the detail that she gives about decapitation, taking someone's head off, and the fact that we've since found out that you're actually aware of it. You're actually aware of the whoosh, and you're aware, allegedly according to science, you're aware of it. And there's a few, I think they said in the book it's 2 seconds, in the sum up at the end, I think it's like 2 seconds or 3 seconds, where even though whoosh, your head's gone, you're still alive. And the feelings that if you're squeamish, I mean, I'm squeamish, but I was all right with it. But I think you need to read it because there's so many people, women, old men, disabled, fearful, the witches, all of these people that had their heads chopped off, and you think the minute shit goes through, they're gone, they're actually not. And the terror that that must be for you is horrific. And I'm glad she actually went into that graphic detail because I think we need to be aware of that um, to understand just what these women, men, children, families went through. Um, yeah, such sad times, such sad times. And then the final book that I've read, which I've been reading this for literally months. I've struggled with it, not because of the writer or the book, but because of my own issues around being the victim of narcissism. It's called It's Not You: How to Identify and Heal from Narcissistic People by Dr. Ramani Durvashula. Sorry if I've butchered it. I really had to take my time with it, but the last bit of it, possibly the last half of it, I've read in February because I thought, you know what? This needs to be dealt with. This needs to be faced. So if you start to read this book, and you start to have that experience with it where you don't want to read it, I would say take a big deep breath and read it because this book is good. There's a lot of similarities with other content about narcissism that we've got out there, but actually, this book frees you. It makes it okay to step back, walk away, whatever. It helps you to understand it a lot better. And it gives scenarios. So I can recommend it. Even though, yes, it can be difficult at times to read it. It brings up a lot. But that big deep breath that you take when you finished it and you go forward. And you know, the truth is, narcissism is on the increase. We've got narcissistic leaders. We've got narcissistic people within institutions, within all kinds of family dynamics, global dynamics. It's on the rise. It's on the rise. There's no running away from it. So we have to learn about narcissism, and I think narcissism has impacted us all. I mean, they claim we're all on the spectrum, but it depends where you are. Are you up at 10 or are you nearly to zero and fluctuate? Because also, as well, if that's the case, if we've all got, because we live in a very different time now, then we need to heal those wounds within ourselves. Um, so yeah, and I've gone straight from that one, this one here, the It's Not You book, into reading Let Them by Mel Robbins. So obviously in March's reading wrap up, you'll hear all about that. But apart from that, I've really enjoyed reading what I've read this month. Um, and I look forward to what March brings to the table. Have you read any of these? What did you find that you liked about them? Did you not like them? Did you not like them? Are you going to read some of these now I've recommended them to you? What did you read in February? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching. Please do like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.